So again, thank you for having me here today. Really do appreciate it. I am incredibly grateful to our entire NDDOT team who have worked so tirelessly throughout the year and helping to build and maintain our the transportation system in the great state of North Dakota. It is an amazing job in any normal year, an incredibly challenging job in any normal year, and this year it's particularly challenging, and I want to thank them for all that they do. I wanted to give you an update on this current session inside of the North Dakota legislature. We've had a great first half of the session. We're actually on something called crossover right now, which is when all of the bills that are coming out of one side of the House then move to the other side of the House for consideration. And so we call that crossover, kind of like our halftime. And so we enjoyed a couple of days of quiet, and they're starting up again today. And we'll get back into the second half of this session here today and over the next few weeks. The governor's proposal this year for NDDOT was about $1.8 billion. That compares to about $1.4 billion in the 1921 a year. And so that's a pretty sizable increase, about a $400 million increase. The budget as a whole, the $1.8 billion budget, includes about $860 million in federal funds, $638 million in state funds, and about $302 million in bond funds for transportation projects. North Dakota has, for a number of years, used bonding to do things like county projects and school projects and university projects. In this particular case, we're using bonding, or the idea of bonding, to finance our critical infrastructure projects around water and transportation. The bond proposal, the $302 million, includes about $237 million in what we call our 10-year infrastructure projects, our 10-year highway infrastructure projects, which is a 10-year plan to improve investment in our state's roads and bridges. About $50 million for Highway 85 is in there for the expansion of Highway 85, and about $15 million for bridges. The way that our revenue looks, and this is sort of a comparative chart between 2019 and 21 and 21-23, so that's the upcoming biennium. It's generally the same. You can see the some of the increases there, except for the gray area on the right, which is proposed bonding. So, you know, generally our funds are fairly steady. They come from the federal sources, state sources, and from the state, it really comes from the Highway Tax Distribution Fund and other state sources like driver's license fees and permits. It stays pretty steady that way. This year, though, the introduction of proposed bonding is new, and I think is important to maintain the transportation system here in North Dakota. The governor feels that way, and frankly, the legislature does. They're figuring out how to pay for all of the, as they do every year, or every other year, how they're going to pay for everything that goes on. But I am truly encouraged by the conversation that the legislature is having around infrastructure this year. It's important, it's timely, it's needed. And I'm really glad that both the House and the Senate are having the discussion this year. Our federal funding, and I just wanted to go over that just a little bit. The FAST Act, the current highway bill, is due to expire on September 30th, 2021. We had a full year's appropriation bill passed by Congress in late December of 2020, and that provides us full funding through September 30th, 2021, which is fantastic, and we thank the Congress for doing that in USDOT. Federal funding for FY21 is approximately the same as 2020, and that included an additional $18 million for bridge replacement and rehabilitation. As you know, we have some of the most efficient bridges in the United States here in North Dakota, and this helps and goes a long way. In addition to that, at the very end of the year, there was a COVID relief package. We had several of them go on throughout the year. And none of them really, I mean, they were always addressing not just the health issues, but economic recovery. and certainly critical to our state. Our state has performed probably better than many as it relates to the COVID response and the effects of the pandemic. But towards the end of last year, they passed a COVID relief bill, which included, in addition to things that they had been working on, or I should say funding before, like transit and airports and those types of things. This one included funding to come to the highway program, the road and bridge program. And that funding has been important not only to us to recover from the downturn in vehicle miles traveled, basically traffic, due to the COVID pandemic and the resulting reduction in federal fuel taxes. It's really helped us significantly overcome that reduction in our funding. We won't see it till right at the end of the fiscal year here, but for us, it's in the $20 to $30 million area of reduced funding that we would have seen, and this helps a great deal. We'll see more the year after, and the year after, and so this helps cover some of those losses for the next few years. And we thank both Congress, the former administration, and the USDOT for helping us to get these funds. So thank you. I wanted to talk a little bit about legislation and give you a little legislative update. There are some bills that I'll go through here very quickly, and I apologize for that. I do want to give you some background of the, we started probably with about, gosh, I want to say we reviewed 300 or so bills. We settled on about 180 bills that we were managing. And as we approached crossover, we got it down to about 120 bills that were remaining. These are just some of them, a select few of them that we have worked on over the last few months or a few weeks so that you can get an idea about what we're doing. HB 1464, excuse me, HB 1464 is a motor vehicle fuel tax increase related to the tax imposed on motor vehicles and special fuels. That's moving through the system, and you know that it is one of the ways that the federal government, that the state government can fund its needed match for federal funds, and so we'll see how that proceeds. HB 2121 is a very important a bill to us. It's the primary seatbelt law. We support this law, and it basically amends the Century Code and creates a primary seatbelt law for the state of North Dakota, which we feel is very, very important. The next one is HB 1168, which is an electronic operator's license. It basically takes the driver's license, this is another one we supported, and makes it an electronic driver's license. And there are some states that have this, and we think that because we have sessions, legislative sessions every 2 years, this bill is going to be important. If we waited 2 years, we may not be in a position to do some of the things we want to do between now and 2 years from now with regards to electronic driver's licenses, and so this gives us an opportunity to do that. The Legacy Fund Infrastructure Loan Program. This is part of the governor's budget, and it creates a revolving loan fund for political subdivisions, and that means counties and cities and townships. And they're able to, in addition to the state receiving bond funds and having those available immediately, the governor's proposal, I think, very, very intelligently puts together a revolving loan fund in addition to that allows them to have funding for generations and generations. It's a technique. The idea of initial bond funding and then a revolving loan fund is one that is a technique that's been utilized by other states and that can, if it does pass, effectively be utilized here in some form in North Dakota. Now, the important difference between this is both the legacy bond, the bond funds and the revolving loan fund is paid for by legacy fund earnings, a portion of legacy fund earnings, and doesn't need to raise taxes, which is a brilliant thing for the program and for the proposal. SB 2026 is governor allowing what they called road trains. They really aren't road trains. They're basically just long and different kinds of truck configurations. We got sort of in front of this bill a little bit and have managed to get some amendments put in place that that makes it more of a study with Upper Great Plains Transportation Institute and us, and to allow for different configurations. And this helps because farmers and the energy industry and others, they have different kinds of configurations that they'd like to propose, and we can't have them damage the roads or the bridges. And so this gives us a pilot to be able to help them with this. I got to tell you, we probably transact on one of these a month, and it'd be much easier if we had a pilot to kind of look at it, gather data, and do that kind of thing as we go forward. So we've changed this, and we're not actually using the word road trains anymore. Next one is HB 1431. Again, a revolving loan fund for water, and certainly will help with those water infrastructure in local governments. Again, part of the governor's proposal to not only have bond funding, but have a revolving loan fund, which I think the technique is excellent. Let's see, HB 1101, which gives the NDDOT the ability to do more work easier with tribes and tribal nations. And so this helps us with planning, with execution of projects, doing projects together in terms of roads and intersections and bridges and those kinds of things. And so it helps us with our mission to safely move goods and people around our state. And I think this was an important bill and gives us the authority to do more with tribal nations, and I think it's fantastic. SB 2111, this is leasing radio towers. As you know, we have one of the largest tower systems, the largest tower system in the state, and we lease a lot of our towers to things like the 911 system and others. And this allows leasing on certain types of towers as we go forward, and it's important to the operation of the state's communication system. I want to focus on a couple of other things now that I've sort of cleared through both the policy side and the budget side of legislation. The first thing is UAS utilization. So North Dakota is committed to being the first state in the United States that has commercial unmanned aircraft systems, UAS systems, in the commercial space operating with the FAA like an airplane would. And that's the best way of describing these programs, where we're working with the US DOT and private companies and university researchers to develop what the next generation of not just UAS vehicles look like, but the next generation of flight traffic management is for UAS vehicles. And we have the right conditions here in North Dakota: economic, technology, regulatory, geographic conditions here in North Dakota to do this. And FAA has recognized that, and we've had a great partnership over the last few years. And we're going to continue that partnership as we go forward. And NDDOT is a huge part of that. So we started with something called the Integration Pilot Program, the IPP, and with FAA, that's all of these projects in one sort of umbrella. And now we've moved beyond that to something called Beyond. And again, it facilitates the successful integration of unmanned aircraft systems or drones into the national airspace. It's repeatable, scalable, and economically viable because we want this to not only be for North Dakota, but for the whole country. And we're looking at not only its benefit to the UAS technology and to that kind of flight operation, but also to our use for it, DOT's use for it for traffic safety, autonomous technology, surveying, photogrammetry, et cetera, that we can use unmanned aircraft systems for. And as you know, we already are using them. We're using them in a couple of different projects or in programs. One is for surveying, especially bridge survey and deck surveys. And we're also using them for flood control and emergency response right now throughout the state in contract with University of North Dakota and the Northern Plains UAS test site. It's a great project. How am I doing on time? Wade, I'm doing okay?
Yeah, you got 10 minutes left, Bill.
Okay. I just very quickly, the Beyond program benefits. Like I said, infrastructure inspection, pipelines, utilities, bridges. They have an idea, and a lot of people like to focus on this, but I think we're going to be using these for pipeline and utilities like tower inspections and bridges first. You may see some small cargo delivery around that, although the press likes to talk about that a lot. And that is something that's possible, but I actually think we're already using them for inspections now, and I think we're going to see a lot more. And then emergency response and assessment, we're going to see use of them in those spaces first. We wanted to talk about a couple of different programs we have around innovation. The NDDOT goal is to utilize innovation wherever we can throughout our work in North Dakota. And a lot of our work on innovation and intelligent transportation systems and some other things are on the east side of the state along what we call the I-29 corridor, where we have the University of North Dakota State University, and the Grand Prairie Initiative, which is Grand Sky and Grand Farm and some of those other things. And they've been great test beds for us to try out new things, to try out new technologies. And so here's a couple. One is autonomous truck mounted attenuator. We did our first demonstration of the attenuator. This is an autonomous truck, as you see. And well, you can't really see if there's a driver or not, but there's no driver in this truck. And it follows our manned maintenance crews, so they don't, so they're safer. And we've demonstrated this, and we're going to keep demonstrating it along I-29 and using it throughout these next few years, and then expand it if it makes sense in different parts of the state. The other is we've drafted and sent out an RFP to begin the process of looking at the possibility of autonomous mowing. And in certain instances where we can have mowers without, driverless mowers operated remotely to be able to, by a truck that's parked there or whatever, to be able to mow large expanses of our rights of way that we have throughout the state of North Dakota. So there's a couple of examples of innovation. There's a lot more here. We just didn't have time to talk about it all. We're working on a new sign policy and sign policy maintenance. Our signs are important. They are basic technology, but that is critical to people's ability to get around and to be safe on our state's highways and bridges. And so having a uniform system in our signs is very, very important. Plans for districts and cities and townships and other kind of project areas, and helping local governments and state agencies like the Parks Department, Parks and Recreation, and other state agencies with their signage is critical. Having a uniform sign policy is really important to our state and to our ability to move goods and people around the state safely. Brand new world-class safety program. We've started this last year. It's a continuation of our existing safety program, but an expansion and a sort of a re-engineering, if you will, of our safety program in every part of the NDDOT and in every office at NDDOT. We launched it this last year. There's going to be a lot more in the next couple of years, so please watch out for that. Our employees are our greatest asset. They're our most important part of our agency, and we need to make sure that they get home every day in the same condition that they arrived every day. Automated and connected vehicles. This is probably the area where I'm not going to have enough time, Wade, if there's 10 minutes to talk. I'm not going to have enough time if there was an hour to talk. The idea of automated and connected vehicle systems is all part of intelligent transportation. We're going to see a lot more here, a lot more in smart infrastructure, a lot more in connected vehicle, a lot more in intelligent transportation systems over the next few years. The governor, the legislature, and NDDOT is committed to this and making sure that we have smarter roads that are safer roads, smarter roads that give more information real time to people who are driving on them, and that reduce costs and create more efficiency and frankly, a better experience on our roads and bridges. And this isn't just for non-commercial purposes, you and me traveling around with our families. It's also for freight and for businesses, making sure our energy economy thrives and our agricultural economy thrives as we go forward. There's a lot more here. In fact, Wade, we could probably have one sort of whole program just about this. That'd be interesting. As you guys have your, I know you have your sessions all planned out, but that would be great. Maybe as another program. So just an idea. Electric vehicles. We're going to see a lot more of these. There are car companies, car platforms that have committed in the next decade to have a fully electric vehicle fleet. Volvo is one of those. So if you buy a Volvo over the next few years, you're going to be buying an electric vehicle. And all of the car companies, all of them, US and European, have already begun the process of transitioning their fleet to from fuel, from organic fuels to electric fuel or electric energy. So they are making those transitions. We are making those transitions as well. You're going to see a lot more charging around not only our state of North Dakota, but around the country. You're going to see a lot more in battery technology and the development of battery technologies as we go forward. By the way, if you haven't driven an electric car, you should. It's a very different experience. I think this year I'm going to try and get a couple of both electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles to be brought out to NDDOT so our employees can actually drive in them and see what they're all about. It's really very important. This is something that's coming to us. It's not a choice, really. It's just a matter of a fact that electric vehicles are coming stronger than we've ever seen. I think during my entire career, I've seen little snips and bits of electric vehicle technology and other alternative fuels. This is no pilot. This is actually going to be happening, and across the planet, we're going to have a lot more electric vehicles. And in the next 10 years, it's likely what you're going to buy when you go to the when you go to the car dealership. You're going to be picking up an electric truck or an electric vehicle. TMC is a very important part of our future in NDDOT. We had it in our budget. In the Senate bill, it was pushed back to a legislative study. Frankly, we've already done a study. We are going to push really hard on the legislature as it goes to crossover to get it back into our budget. It simply is a budget item. It's something that we are already doing, and we just want to re-engineer how we do a TMC and make it more like TMCs around the country and modernize it and move forward with it. It is incredibly important to being able to manage our highway system and the traffic and transportation system in North Dakota itself. And it creates efficiencies and frankly creates a safer traveling environment and frankly a traveling working environment for our employees. TMC is a critical part of the governor's request, and it's a critical part of our future. Thank you so much for all that you all do. I appreciate each and every one of you, and there is no way that we could run such an expansive system across such an expansive state in such a great way without you. So thank you so much.